The blood pressure is 130 by 80 millimeters of mercury in the right arm in supine position. How did you check the blood pressure? With the help of sphygmomanometer, I made the patient lie relaxed in supine position with the shirt removed off the right arm. I applied the deflated cuff of the sphygmomanometer snugly to the upper arm with its lower edge 1 inch above the elbow and the rubber bag centered over the medial side, that is over the brachial artery. What is the width of your cuff? 12.5 centimeters, which is the normal adult size. Can you use the same cuff in children? No sir, smaller sized cuffs ranging from 3 to 9 centimeters in width will be used in children. The size should be such that it should cover at least 2/3 of the upper arm but leave a gap of ½ inch below the axilla and ½ inch above the antecubital fossa. What will be the error if the correct size is not used? Smaller cuff will give falsely high reading, while a larger cuff will give a low reading, as well as it will obstruct the stethoscope over the antecubital fossa. Proceed. Then I palpated the radial pulse at the wrist, inflated the cuff till the pulse was obliterated, and then a further 30 millimeters above this systolic pressure. Then I kept the chest piece of my stethoscope lightly over the brachial artery in the antecubital fossa just below the elbow and medial to the center. Then I gradually deflated the cuff and noted the highest point at which the first clear sound was heard as the systolic pressure, which was 130 millimeters of mercury, and the point at which the sound disappeared completely as the diastolic pressure, which was 90 millimeters of mercury. If the patient was hypertensive or taking antihypertensive drugs, then I would have also checked the blood pressure in sitting or standing position to detect orthostatic hypotension. Can you record the blood pressure without a stethoscope? Yes sir, roughly we can record by palpating the brachial artery when the cuff is being deflated. The point at which the pulse appears first is the systolic pressure, but the pulse at this stage has a water hammer character, and the point at which it changes from the bounding type to normal is the diastolic pressure. However, the auscultatory method is more accurate. If the auscultation is more accurate, then why did you palpate the artery first? To record the correct systolic blood pressure, avoiding the silent gap of auscultation seen in some hypertensive patients with systolic blood pressure of more than 200 millimeters of mercury. In this phenomenon, the sounds disappear at a point below 200 millimeters for a period of 20 to 30 millimeters and then reappear to disappear finally at the point of diastolic pressure. So if the cuff pressure is not fully raised initially, the reappearance of the sounds after the silent gap may be falsely recorded as the systolic pressure. Hence, we must palpate the brachial artery to record the correct systolic pressure. What are the Korotkos sounds? These are the successive sounds that are auscultated over the brachial artery as the sphygmomanometer cuff is being slowly deflated. At the systolic pressure, clear but dull sounds appear first. They are then replaced by a murmur followed by loud, sharp tapping sounds. When the diastolic pressure is reached, the sounds become suddenly muffled, and about 5 to 10 millimeters below this point, they disappear completely. The sudden muffling of the sharp tapping sounds indicates the true diastolic pressure. However, for simplicity and uniformity in recording, the point at which they disappear completely is generally noted as the diastolic pressure. Now tell me, what is pulse pressure? Pulse pressure is the difference between the systolic and the diastolic pressure. Normal pulse pressure is 30 to 60 millimeters. It may be abnormally wide due to increased systolic blood pressure in hypertension, low diastolic pressure in aortic regurgitation, or high cardiac output as in thyrotoxicosis, severe anemia, cirrhosis of liver, AV fistulae, and during exercise. Low pulse pressure is seen in aortic stenosis, tight mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension, states of shock, advanced congestive cardiac failure, and constrictive pericarditis. What is the normal blood pressure reading? In a normal adult, systolic blood pressure ranges from 95 to 150 millimeters and diastolic blood pressure from 60 to 90 millimeters of mercury. In children, it is lower depending on the age. When is it necessary to check the blood pressure in the legs, and how do you check it? Whenever there is a radiofemoral delay and coarctation of aorta is suspected, the blood pressure in the legs should be checked. Here, the blood pressure in the legs is lower than that in the arms. With the patient in prone position, tie a 7-inch, that is 18 cm cuff to the thigh 1 to 2 inches above the knee and auscultate over the popliteal artery. Right. Now before moving to the examination of the precordium, let us analyze our findings. Sir, analyzing at this stage, we can see that the disease is acyanotic. Jugular venous pressure is slightly raised, but no edema of legs or abdominal distension, so a very early congestive cardiac failure. Jugular venous pulse shows large A waves with a probably left-sided lesion, that is, pulmonary hypertension has already developed. The pulse is of low volume, normal character, no signs of wide pulse pressure. Blood pressure recording shows normal pulse pressure, though on lower side. This rules out gross abnormalities of the aortic valve. So, mitral valve lesions and mild aortic stenosis are now at the top of our list of differential diagnosis, followed by congenital heart diseases. Proceed. On examination of the precordium, on inspection, the size and shape of the chest is normal. There is slight bulging of the precordium. What does it suggest? In absence of skeletal deformities and lung diseases, it suggests ventricular hypertrophy, usually due to mitral or aortic valve diseases or congenital heart disease. In pericardial effusion, there is bulging of the intercostal spaces without bulging of the ribs. Proceed. The apex impulse is seen in the left fifth intercostal space, 1 cm lateral to the mid-clavicular line, that is, it is displaced only laterally, not downwards. What is apex impulse? Apex impulse is the circumscribed elevation or outward and forward movement of the chest wall during systole due to systolic impact of the juxtapical area of the heart. It is a sign of inspection, best seen by inspecting the chest wall tangentially with the patient lying down or sitting up and bending forwards. In which conditions is it absent? Thick chest wall, emphysematous chest wall, or if it is lying behind a rib or pendulous breast tissue. It is also absent in pericardial effusion and severe myocardial infarction. What is its normal position? In the fifth left intercostal space, just inside the midclavicular line. It is limited to one intercostal space and is less than 2.5 cm in diameter. In which conditions is it displaced? It is displaced downwards and outwards in left ventricular enlargement, only outwards in right ventricular enlargement, and to the right side in dextrocardia. It may also be displaced by extracardiac causes, as in skeletal deformities like scoliosis and funnel chest, in pleural effusion, pneumothorax or fibrosis in the lungs, and in massive abdominal distension due to ascites, pregnancy or tumor. What is a left ventricular rock? It is the rocking or seesaw movement of the precordium due to a forcible apex thrust accompanied by mild indrawing of the adjacent portion of the precordium seen in massive left ventricular hypertrophy. Proceed. Visible pulsations are seen in the left second intercostal space, no dilated veins or scars. At which sites do you look for visible pulsations other than the apex impulse? Sir, left parasternal pulsations to the left of the lower half of sternum in right ventricular hypertrophy. Pulsations in the left second and third intercostal spaces due to dilated pulmonary artery in pulmonary hypertension in mitral or aortic valve lesions. Suprasternal pulsations in aneurysm of aorta, unfolding of the aorta in hypertension, anomalous right subclavian or thyroid ema artery and an overactive heart. And lastly, epigastric pulsations in the epigastrium in right ventricular hypertrophy, aneurysm of aorta, normal aortic pulsations transmitted either by a thin abdominal wall or by an overlying abdominal lump, and lastly, a pulsating left lobe of liver in tricuspid regurgitation. So, what information have we gathered by now? Sir, the apex beat is displaced only laterally, indicating a right ventricular hypertrophy. Visible pulsations in the second left intercostal space suggest pulmonary hypertension with dilatation of the pulmonary artery. There is no indication as yet of left ventricular hypertrophy, which must be present in aortic lesions and mitral regurgitation. So the evidence till now is pointing to mitral stenosis. On palpation, the apex beat is felt in the left fifth intercostal space, 1 cm lateral to the mid-clavicular line, It is of tapping character, that is short, snappy apex beat. Is this the normal position of the apex beat? No sir, it is displaced outwards but not downwards, suggesting a right ventricular hypertrophy. Define apex beat. It is the lowermost and outermost point of the cardiac impulse which imparts a perpendicular thrust to the palpating finger. How did you palpate it? With the patient sitting and bent slightly forwards, I stood on the right side of the patient and palpated with the palm of my right hand to locate the apex beat. Then I palpated with the tip of the index and middle finger to note the exact location and character of the apex beat. What information can you obtain from the character of the apex beat? Normally, the outward movement of the apex beat does not persist beyond early systole. A heaving apex beat is felt in aortic stenosis and systemic hypertension, where the palpating finger rises slowly and falls back slowly, giving a heaving or resistant sensation. Here, there is systolic overload and so a left ventricular hypertrophy without dilatation. A hyperdynamic apex beat is felt in mitral regurgitation, aortic regurgitation, ventricular septal defect, and patent ductus arteriosus, where there is diastolic overload causing left ventricular dilatation plus hypertrophy. Here, the beat is forceful but its duration is normal. A tapping apex beat is felt in mitral stenosis, which is a short, snappy, and sudden apex beat and is the palpable equivalent of the loud first heart sound. A double apex beat may be felt with an extra beat just before the first heart sound, that is a presystolic gallop, or following the second heart sound, that is protodiastolic gallop, corresponding to the fourth or the third heart sounds respectively. Where do you find a negative or retractile apex beat? In constrictive pericarditis. Proceed. There is a left parasternal heave. What does the heave signify? Right ventricular hypertrophy. To be precise, right ventricular hypertrophy with systolic overload, as seen in mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension and pulmonary stenosis. Which sign will indicate right ventricular hypertrophy with diastolic overload? The right ventricular slap, that is the outward movement of the left parasternal area, is quick and only during early systole, as seen in atrial septal defect and tricuspid regurgitation, while the outward movement of the right ventricular heave is prolonged and is sustained throughout the systole. It is tested by resting the ulnar border of the right hand on the left side of the sternum with the fingers pointing towards the head. Proceed. There is a diastolic thrill palpable over the apical area with the patient in left lateral position. What is a thrill? Thrill is a vibratory sensation originating in the heart or vessels and transmitted to the palpating hand through the chest wall. In other words, thrill is a palpable murmur. Can a thrill exist without a murmur? A loud first heart sound may sometimes send vibrations felt as a thrill, and occasionally a murmur of very low pitch may not be audible but the thrill may be felt. Which lesions commonly produce thrill? Thrills are commonly produced by low-pitched, harsh murmurs of valve stenosis, and they are rare in high-pitched murmurs of regurgitation. So the commonly felt thrills are diastolic thrill in the apical area due to mitral stenosis, best felt in the left lateral position; systolic thrill in the second right intercostal space due to aortic stenosis, best felt in sitting position leaning forwards; then systolic thrill in the second left intercostal space due to pulmonary stenosis, atrial septal defect or patent ductus arteriosus; and systolic thrill in the third and fourth left intercostal space due to ventricular septal defect. Proceed. There is a diastolic thrill palpable over the apical area. Diastolic shock is felt in the pulmonary area. No other palpable sounds or rub. What is a diastolic shock? It is the palpable second heart sound, commonly the P2 in pulmonary hypertension. Which other sounds can be palpated? In mitral stenosis, loud first heart sound is felt as tapping apex impulse or mitral tap, and the opening snap may be felt as a short clicking impulse. Ejection clicks and third heart sound may also be sometimes palpable. Proceed. The carotid artery pulsations are normal, no thrill, no tracheal tug. What is a tracheal tug? Raise the chin of the patient and apply firm pressure on the two sides of the cricoid cartilage with the right hand. A downward tug felt with each heartbeat is called tracheal tug and is seen in aneurysm of arc of aorta and mediastinal tumors. Can you analyze your findings now? At the end of palpation, displacement of the apex beat laterally and not downwards is confirmed. A tapping apex beat suggests mitral stenosis. It is not sustained or heaving, which again goes against left ventricular hypertrophy. Left parasternal heave indicates right ventricular hypertrophy. Diastolic thrill over the apical area is diagnostic of mitral stenosis, and diastolic shock in the pulmonary area confirms pulmonary hypertension. So we have mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension with right ventricular hypertrophy and mild congestive cardiac failure. Proceed. On percussion, the left border is 12 cm from the mid-sternal line in the fifth intercostal space and corresponds with the apex beat. The right border is substernal. There is a dull note in the left second intercostal space. How did you percuss for the right border? First, I percussed in the right midclavicular line in each intercostal space from the clavicle downwards till I reached the upper margin of the liver. Then I percussed one space above the liver margin, moving towards the sternum till a dull note was obtained, indicating the right border of the heart. It was substernal. And the left border? I palpated the apex beat, then percussed in the next intercostal space from the mid-axillary line towards the heart till the resonant note changed to dull note. Then I percussed in the second left intercostal space below the medial end of the clavicle. The note here was dull. So what is your interpretation? Normally, the left border is up to 9 cm from the mid-sternal line. Its lateral displacement indicates right or left ventricular enlargement or pericardial effusion or displacement of the heart by extra cardiac factors like pleural effusion. Here, pericardial effusion can be ruled out as the apex impulse is well visualized and cardiac dullness is not pear-shaped. In absence of lung lesion, ventricular enlargement is confirmed. Now there is dullness in the second intercostal space, suggesting a left atrial or pulmonary artery enlargement. The right border is within normal limits. If it extends to more than 1 cm to the right of sternum, it suggests right or left atrial enlargement in absence of pericardial effusion or lung disease. What are the cardinal rules or principles to follow during percussion? The pleximeter finger, that is the middle finger of the left hand, must be firmly applied to the chest wall and other fingers should be lifted off the chest. The percussing finger, that is the index or middle finger of the right hand, should be kept flexed at right angle. The percussion stroke should be sudden and short. It should strike the middle phalanx of the pleximeter finger perpendicularly with the pad of the finger, and the movement should occur at the wrist and not in the fingers. The percussion should proceed from resonant to dull area, and the pleximeter finger should be preferably held parallel to the border being percussed. In which conditions is the cardiac dullness obliterated? In severe emphysema, and in dextrocardia it is present on the right side. Right. So percussion has confirmed a ventricular hypertrophy and a left atrial enlargement. Now, like the proverbial good clinician, let us confirm our diagnosis by auscultation. Sir, on auscultation in the mitral area, there is a loud first heart sound, an opening snap, followed by a low-pitched rumbling mid-diastolic murmur with presystolic accentuation, which is best heard in the left lateral position with the bell of the stethoscope, and there are no respiratory variations. Typical of mitral stenosis. In pulmonary area, P2 is loud, indicating associated pulmonary hypertension. Now regarding other systemic examination, alimentary system is normal, liver and spleen are not palpable, no ascites. Respiratory system, there is no evidence of pleural effusion or basal rales. My diagnosis is rheumatic heart disease with mitral stenosis, with pulmonary hypertension, right ventricular hypertrophy, and mild congestive cardiac failure in sinus rhythm. Why do you say that the patient has pulmonary hypertension and congestive cardiac failure? Pulmonary hypertension because there is a prominent A wave in jugular venous pulse, pulsations in the second left intercostal space, a right ventricular heave, diastolic shock, and on auscultation there is a loud P2. There is congestive cardiac failure because the patient has dyspnea, large A waves in jugular venous pulse, and slightly raised jugular venous pressure. This is the end of the discussion on mitral stenosis in the series of case presentations in medicine in the cassette clinics by Dr. Ghanashyam Vaidya.